Hi, so this is Forged by Geeks with my wife Nicole. We're here to tell you a little bit about this wonderful game that we just got from the guy that's launching a Kickstarter. For us, it's tomorrow, called, I think we're saying Zipang, or how are you pronouncing it?
Something like that.
Something like that. We think it's might be a play on Japan, or it might be a territory in Japan. We're a little unsure, but we want to teach you a little bit about how to play this game. So one of the first things you can see here is it comes with these coins. It's got a couple hint cards and then a whole stack of various playing cards. This is definitely a competitive game, so for those who don't like to beat up their friends, this might not be for you, but if that's something you enjoy, it goes pretty quick. We found most game sessions maybe 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a really fast and, simple game to just pick up and play and then put it down if once you have to move in line or something if you're at a convention.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're planning. We had enough fun with this. We've got a playtest video up online as well that you can watch to see us actually play through some of these rules. We're planning to bring this to PAX West ourselves during some of the line sitting, like maybe when we're waiting in line to get into the Acquisitions Inc. panel or a couple of other things. We plan to whip this out. It's very simple, very easy to learn. So here, we'll try to explain it for you a little bit. So the core of the game is you've got these coins which kind of act as your victory points, but also your life points. It's a weird combination, but it seems to work. For a two-player game, you get 4 of them, and then for anything from 3 players to 6 players, you get 5 of them. And how it works is, as you play the game, you'll be transferring the coins back and forth, sometimes between players, sometimes into this ante pool, and sometimes you just, well, grab a whole bunch.
Yeah.
And if you run out of coins, you're dead, basically.
Yeah.
But if one person dies, game's over. At that point, oops, you determine who the winner is. And I was apparently trying to kill a peasant.
Though note that that death condition only happens at the beginning of every round. You're supposed to ante into the pool. If somebody can't ante, the game's over.
Yeah, so if you can ante in, you're fine. If people try to take coins from you with like the merchant card or something like that, you stay in. You just can't put in a card. The only example where you could die from not having a coin in the main game is if somebody attacks you before you've taken your first turn. Normally you can play a coin to block it as an option. You can't do that because you don't have coin to play.
But even so, that only gets you out of the round.
Yeah,
Which, I mean, I guess if you have no coin to play, that pretty much ends your chances at the game, because there's no way
and
that
then
you
yeah,
can win.
and then
So,
everybody
yeah.
else would know this is the final round of the game.
Yep.
If you're knocked out, of course, by the attack.
Yeah.
Okay, so how it plays to start is you deal out those coins, as I was saying, 4 to each person for 2-player, or 5 to each person for 3 to 6 players. If you remove some of the cards from the game, it's right in the instructions. It's very simple. If you have 2 or 3 players, these are all the cards you would remove. If you have 4 and 5 players, you remove 1 of each of those. If you have 6 players, you just keep all of the cards in the game. Then what you do is you determine a first player. Our favorite method is always Rochambeau or rock, paper, scissors.
Yep.
And really, whoever goes first, we haven't found a big impact on that, so I wouldn't worry too much. And then you start by dealing 2 cards to each player. So we'd have those 2 cards out. Then you take the top card and just kind of put it off to the side, and that marks a discard, but it also removes a random card from the deck, which means if you have card counters, there's something that's missing and adds a little bit of extra randomness. So normally, like, we found that all of us were keeping an eye out for the Emperor late in the game and going, oh my god, who has the Emperor? Because it can be really a trump card late in the game. Or somebody might attack me with the Warlord. There may not be the Warlord in there. There may not be the Emperor. So it kind of adds a nice little random element. But then we both grab the 2 cards, and more or less we start the game. Now, say I'm the player that's going to go. At that point, I would draw up a 3rd card. And in this case, I have a peasant, a monk, and a warlord. I'll put it here. It's probably more visible. All of these have battle strength on them and honor points. The honor points are decided mostly if you play the Emperor card. What happens?
Or at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Once the supply runs out and you can't draw any more cards, then at that point the honor also comes into play.
Yeah. So well, that's not the end of the game. That's end of a round. Or campaign. A round campaign, they use the same terminology. So at the end of a round or campaign, if the deck's empty and there's still at least 2 players, honor is used to determine who wins that round. If there's people tied on honor, then honor's still used because you draw 2 random cards, or you draw a random card for each player from the deck, and whoever has the highest honor wins.
Yeah.
And you keep knocking out people that way until somebody wins. So honor is mostly used at that point for that kind of victory. Whereas for the rest of the time, you have these battle points that are used for attacking. So for example, if I was to attack, with these cards, honestly, I'd probably use the Warlord to attack you. So I'd play down the Warlord card. It would immediately go into the discard pile. Now, the Warlord attacks one other player, so if we had 5, I'd have to choose somebody. But for this sake, I'd attack you.
And since I just have a bandit and a merchant, this is 2 from the bandit and 1 from the merchant, which means I have a total of 3, which means I lose.
Yeah.
So at that point, I am now no longer in competition to acquire the coins that were part of the ante. I put my cards into the discard pile, and I'm out. Now, the thing is that while you're out, you can still have coins taken from you, but you aren't in competition to win this campaign anymore.
Yeah, so for example, we have these little side hint cards that he provides that tells you what the characters do. You tend to learn these and memorize them really quick. So on the one hand, I'd love to have some details on the cards themselves, but honestly, within just a couple of hands, we almost weren't even referencing it anymore. So that's a design decision I think that I could have go either way. But like the merchant, for example, you use to steal a coin. Or you don't really steal.
No, you don't steal. You demand that other people pay into the ante.
So for the start of our hand, we would have actually had 2 coins down, 1 from each of us for the ante. And then we would have had 3 coins left on each of us.
Mm-hmm.
So if Nicole had played the merchant, that was her pile. I would have had to put 1 into the ante. If we had 3 players, the other player would have put 1 into the ante as well.
But I don't have to pay because it's my merchant.
Yep. But then, when I won, I would have just taken all the winnings, leaving her with 3, and me now with, I can count, 5. And this would keep going until one of us was out.
Now, note that there's one thing. So I just, took it and, let myself pass away, right? The bandit card, actually. So what I could have done instead is, since that was theoretically the first round of the game, I could have just paid a coin into the ante.
To block my 5-point attack.
Since I had not gotten a turn yet. That's all you get. If I had gone first and then he hit me with the Warlord, then I wouldn't have been able to pay that coin. I would have basically just lost because I only had the merchant and the bandit.
Now, how you actually block, though, is I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to find a captain here. So let's say I had played a captain. It has a battle power of 3. And Nicole's 2 cards of the Merchant and Bandit add up to 3. What she would do then is she would show me, and only me, since I was the attacker, that she actually had 3 points in her hand, and then she'd take it back for herself. Now, what we found was the player, probably after they take it back, put them under the table and shuffle them up a little bit, because there is definitely an aspect of knowing which cards the other people are playing once you've seen their hand.
Yeah.
So if you're the receiving player, you kind of want to mix that up and keep it hidden. There's definitely a lot of strategy around how you hold your hand. Once people have seen your cards, trying to confuse them with which cards are still in your hand and things like that.
Yeah, I found that was impacting my strategy a little bit later.
We have a kitty.
Yes, we have a kitty. It was impacting our strategy a little bit later, actually. At one point, I had to show my hand to somebody else, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, if I play the card that I just got, then they know what my hand is. So if I play one of the cards that they saw, then they don't know what my second card is at that point. They know what one of the cards I kept was, but not both the cards in my hand anymore.
And there's some really deep strategy in this game. We've only scratched the surface, but one of the tactics that you'll see us use if you watch the other video a couple of times, well, we may only used it once in the video, but in other sessions we were using it more, is once this deck runs out, the draw deck, the round's over, or the campaign as they call it is over. At that point, so you want to manipulate that deck. So there's this ninja card that you can use to force somebody to discard the 2 cards in their hand. Now, one of the requirements in the game is somebody always has 2 cards in their hand before anything else happens. So what that means is, so for example, if you use the tea merchant, was it? Or the nobleman, you steal or you take a card out of somebody else's hand and play it. You take that card from their hand, they draw up to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And once they're back up to 2, then you play the card. And that's how it always goes. But the rules are, if the deck's ever empty, game ends right there. Before you even play the card.
At which point, and you look at the honor to determine what the to determine who would win that round, which I used to great effect on you. And one of the parts that was not in the playtest video, where I basically nuked you with the ninja when only the 2 of us were left alive.
And there were no cards to draw in the deck, so she made me discard my 2 cards, and then I had to draw up 2. I couldn't draw up any. I had no cards. She won by default.
Yeah.
There's also a case I think I used against Stan in the video where I just stole a card from him, and he, or it might have been against you, I just stole a card using the tea merchant. There were no cards to draw up. All she had was 1 card worth of honor versus mine and Dan's. So there's definitely a lot of strategy around when to play some of those draw cards because you can end the game at opportune moments. There's also strategy, especially when you get into 3, 4, 5, 6 players, where, okay, you've got that person with 1 coin or no coins left, you could end the game right now. But if you end the game right now, there's that person over there with more coins than you. They just win, de facto. Yeah. So you've got to be really careful about just ending the game when somebody's going to lose, because knocking them out knocks you out too, as it were, because you just give the victory to another person. You're a kingmaker at that point. But so there's a lot of deep strategy to this game, which I think is worth investigating. And one of the things that I think a lot of people will pick up on really quick, and everybody I think is going to develop strategies probably much better than what we were doing.
Yeah.
Next thing is, so once you complete a round and the coins are re-divvied out to people, all you do is you pick back up the cards, including the 1 card that was face down. You shuffle that back into the deck, and then you just deal out the 2 cards to everybody again. Put down the 1 discard card, put down the draw deck, rinse, repeat until somebody's out of coins and a round ends. Then the game actually ends, and you determine what happens from there.
So I guess we probably ought to talk about what the cards do.
Yeah. So there's quite a few cards in the game. They offer this nice little cheat sheet. But so let's start. We'll go through them. So we've got the merchant. Go ahead. I'll let you explain them.
Okay. So the merchant basically says that everybody else has to pay a coin into the ante pile. So that's increasing the overall pot for the current game. You don't have to do that though. So that's kind of nice.
Next, you have the peasant, and I'll put down 2 of them and let you explain that why.
Yeah, so the peasant on its own does nothing, but if you take 2 peasants and you play them together, then you attack everybody else in the game with an attack of 5, which is equivalent to the warlord, which is the strongest card in the deck. So it's super useful if you get that, but it's not very easy to collect both of those peasants. And I believe that I said that if you only get 1 of them, it does nothing. You can play it, but it just won't do anything.
Yeah, even though it technically has 1 battle, if you play a peasant, it does nothing. It doesn't even do a 1 attack for somebody. It's completely useless if you play it. But sometimes you want to play a peasant because it does nothing and you've got 2 better cards.
Yeah.
Okay, next up you have the monk.
So the monk can be discarded at any time to prevent any card from affecting you, including an attack. So note that you're not going to do this on your own turn. If you play the monk on your own turn, he does nothing. But it's very useful as a defense versus an attack, or, you know, a bandit or whatever.
Yeah. Next up we've got one of my favorite cards, the ninja.
Yeah, so if you play the ninja on somebody, they have to discard their entire hand.
Oh, I so should have had my Naruto thing up here. Okay, next up we've got the princess.
So the princess takes half of the ante pile, rounded down. So if there's 3 cards, you take 1, or 3 coins, then you take 1. If there's 4 coins, you take 2, etc., so on and so forth. So if you take a couple of merchants and everybody's anteing in, and then you play the princess, it is a nice day.
Yes, or let other people play the merchants.
Oh yeah.
That's an even better situation because they don't see it coming.
Yes.
Next you have the bandit.
So the bandit basically says, you point at one person at the table and say, I want 1 of your coins, and they give you the coin. It's great.
Yeah. Note, the monk can block any card.
Yeah.
With the exception of the Emperor.
Yes.
So, like, if somebody tries to play the bandit on you, and you have a monk, bam! No, you're not taking my coin. Next up, we have the captain.
So the captain's a straight up attack card. 3 battle, like, initiate a battle. That's all he does. It's very good.
Yes. Also good for 3 defense, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were times when I'd hold a captain in my hand just because I thought I was going to get attacked. And a captain plus, like, a 2-point card, I could block anything. I was in heaven.
Yeah.
Next up is the Tea Master.
So the Tea Master is you point at somebody else and they have to, like, you randomly choose one of their card and then it's played immediately. So if you get a peasant, nothing happens. You get a ninja, things get interesting. So yeah, it's interesting because you don't have much control over what the Tea Master does, but if you happen to know what their cards are.
Yep. One of the interesting things was one game that we played, I used the Tea Master and got the Emperor.
Which
so
ends
the round right there. And it was just like, wow, okay, and I think that was actually like the second hand, like we had just gotten around, it was my first turn, I played the Tea Master, got there, but it's like, well, that was a quick round.
Yep.
Next up we have kind of the advanced Tea Master, the Nobleman.
Yeah, so the Nobleman offers a lot of honor. But if you decide to use him, you get to look at the person's hand and pick the card you want. So it's definitely an upgraded version of the Tea Master. I found myself holding on to him, though, a lot of the time because of that honor.
Especially if you were, nice. I mean, if I had him at the start of the game, I might use it. But if, like, I'm looking at him, I might have one more turn, I'm holding on to him because that 4 honor, plus if you have another card with 2 or 3, can counter the Emperor in somebody's hand.
Yeah, okay. Exactly.
So next up is another 4 honor card, the Shrine Maiden, which is kind of so the Tea Master's on one side of the Nobleman, the Shrine Maiden's kind of the other end.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. The Shrine Maiden, basically everybody else has to reveal their hands. It specifically calls out 15 seconds in the manual, but, like, it's hard to time 15 seconds, so usually...
It's enough time for everybody to look around the table and go, okay, you've got these 2 cards, you've got these 2 cards, you've got these 2 cards. Oh, and the asshole that played the Shrine Maiden, no one gets to see his cards.
So thinking about it, like, on a 6-player game, that 15 seconds could be kind of important, because you might not be able to look around and memorize everybody else's cards.
Yeah, I think most people aren't going to bother timing it, just give everybody a chance to spot them all at least once, like what we did. But I'm sure some people that might try a little bit more hardcore on this, somebody just sets like a little 15-second timer on their phone, is like, start, reveal. And once the alarm goes off, we're just, ha!
Yeah.
Okay, next up we've got the all-purpose attack card, but also with a decent amount of honor, the Warlord. I actually held him one game because of that 3 honor, because I had the Shrine Maiden plus him, and I'm like, that's 7. That's a lot.
Also, the great thing about the Warlord is that as long as he's in your hand, nothing is taking you down. There is nothing that can beat the Warlord. He is the ideal defense card. Even if people send peasants at you, it doesn't matter. Nothing is going to happen.
But he's also the most powerful attack card, but you can only use him against one opponent. So you have to pick one person, and if that person blocks it, you're going to be really unhappy.
Yeah, because he can't, of course, be defeated by the monk, which is the best strategy. But if all they have is defense cards, like, well, they can survive it if you had like 2 captains or whatever, but it's a solid card you are probably going to win.
So one card we didn't play with in the video that we have linked in the area between the video and the comments is the Commander. He's the only card that you don't play with, period, unless you have at least 4 players. Do you know what the Commander does, or should I cover it?
Yeah, I know what it does. So basically, the reason why the Commander isn't in the larger game is because it would be basically a slightly weaker version of the Peasant.
Yeah.
You choose 2 players at the table, and they both take an attack of 4. So that's 1 less than the Peasant, and of course the double Peasant attacks everybody at the table, but it's understandable that it would probably bend the game's balance a bit if it was just a 3-player game.
Exactly.
And what would you do with a 2-player game?
Oh, 2-player game, yeah, that would be really pointless. So next up we have kind of the campaign ender, the Emperor.
So the Emperor, as soon as you play it, like, the campaign's over. He's basically like, stop fighting, I'm tired of this. At which point everybody reveals their hands, you calculate the honor, and like determine who was the winner and who takes the ante-pile.
Now, it's important to note, while the Emperor has 5 honor, if you play the Emperor, you don't get that 5 honor. It's whatever honor you have remaining in the 2 cards in your hand that counts towards your victory. So playing the Emperor is a highly risky maneuver, though one time I found myself playing the Emperor to not win myself, but to make sure the person that had 0 coins didn't end that round, to make sure they won and at least the other 2 of us had coins to stop the other person from just having the instant victory.
Yeah.
And last but not least, this is my favorite card, the Crazy One.
So the Crazy One, you play it and you take a card from the discard and play it. I mean, you don't take it exactly. You just basically usually say, I'm playing the Warlord. I guess well, no, technically the Emperor could be in the pile if you got ninja'd.
Oh, if he got ninja'd, yeah. That's
so, but in any case, the Crazy One just straight up, like, play a card out of the discard pile. He's a decent source of honor as well.
Yep.
And not bad as a defensive card.
No, if you mix him with, like, another 2 or 3 pointer, you basically have defense against anything. Yep. Though usually I found the Crazy One was definitely a card I wanted to play, just because, like, it was one of the great things. If you saw somebody play a Warlord, you knew they probably didn't have defense left in their hand or enough defense. So you pop the Crazy One, reactivate that Warlord versus them, you probably knock them out. Yeah. Likewise, we did some similar stuff, either with the Crazy One or just with another one of the captains. If somebody played a captain, the odds are they don't have another captain. And they may not have enough defense to block a captain, so that was a great time to attack.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Of course, it very much depends on who you're playing with and what their style of gaming is. That's going to influence a lot in how they play. So, there's a lot here in this game. It's very simple, easy to pick up, easy to learn, but...
Yeah, the only thing I'm missing is I'm missing a Yuri card, because Yuri would, of course, defeat everything. He has the smarts, the strength, everything, except for maybe your fat cat.
Yes.
He might take a few too many whacks. I don't think I could hit a vital spot. It just kind of bounce around.
Yeah.
Okay, well, either way, thank you very much for watching. We hope this helped. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to hit us up in the comments of the video. We're more than happy to help anybody who's having trouble with the game or anything like that, walk you through it. And like I said, I'll be bringing this to PAX West. There's 80,000 people. Good luck running into us. But, and if you do run into us, it's probably because you're in the Playtest Northwest booth where I'm demoing my game. In which case, I'm probably not going to be demoing this. But, yeah, if you see us, you're welcome to give it a shot. I think the Kickstarter will still be going on then. Otherwise, like I said, any help in the comments, anything, let us know. And otherwise, have a good one.
Take care.